The Krylos were not merely conquerors. They were apex predators in every sense of the term. Their sleek warships cut through the void of space like raptors descending upon unsuspecting prey. For centuries, their dominance over the galaxy had been absolute. Entire civilizations had fallen before them, some wiped out entirely, others enslaved and stripped of their culture, resources, and dignity. No species had ever posed a credible threat to the Krylos. To challenge them was to invite annihilation. Their empire stretched across thousands of star systems, governed by an ironclad hierarchy that valued strength above all else. At its pinnacle stood Commander Valeth, a towering figure whose reputation for ruthlessness was matched only by his strategic brilliance. Under his leadership, the Krylos military machine operated with surgical precision, crushing resistance wherever it surfaced. Yet despite their overwhelming power, there was something unsettling about their methods, a cold efficiency that left no room for mercy or negotiation. It was this unshakable confidence that led the Krylos to overlook the scattered remnants of humanity. Once Earth's cradle of civilization, humanity had been reduced to little more than whispers in the galactic winds after centuries of environmental collapse and internal strife. What remained of the human race now eked out a fragile existence on distant colonies scattered across the edges of known space. These colonies were small, isolated, and largely ignored by larger interstellar powers. Humanity had learned to keep its head down, avoiding entanglements with the likes of the Krylos. But even the smallest spark can ignite a firestorm. A routine scouting mission. Commander Valeth sat in the command center of the Shadowfang, his flagship gazing at the holographic map of the sector. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Terex, approached cautiously, her claws clicking softly against the metallic floor. She carried a datapad containing the latest reconnaissance reports. "Commander," she said, bowing slightly, "our scouts have detected unusual activity in Sector 42 Beta. A thriving settlement has been identified." Valeth raised an eyebrow. "Unusual? Explain." Terex hesitated, aware of how rare surprises were in the tightly controlled Krylos territories. "It appears to be human," she admitted. "One of their colonies. Larger and more advanced than any we've encountered recently." This revelation intrigued Valeth. Humans were considered a minor nuisance at best, a species too fractured and weak to warrant serious attention. But if what Terex reported was true, perhaps these humans had grown complacent in their isolation. Perhaps they believed themselves safe from the Krylos reach. "Prepare a strike force," Valeth ordered, his voice low and deliberate. "We will test their mettle. If they prove worthy adversaries, we may find use for them. If not—" He trailed off, baring his fangs in a predatory grin. "Then let them serve as another example of our supremacy." The colony of New Haven. New Haven was one of humanity's brightest achievements since the fall of Earth. Nestled within the orbit of a dying red dwarf star, the colony thrived thanks to ingenuity and sheer determination. Its inhabitants had transformed barren rock into fertile farmland, built sprawling cities powered by renewable energy, and fostered a spirit of cooperation that transcended all divisions. At the heart of New Haven stood Governor Leela Hart, a former engineer who had risen to lead the colony during its darkest days. Her administration prioritized sustainability and self-reliance, ensuring that New Haven could survive without relying on external support. While aware of the dangers lurking beyond their borders, Hart and her people chose to focus on building a better future rather than dwelling on past tragedies. That changed when the first warning came. "Governor!" shouted Lieutenant Marcus Chin, bursting into Hart's office. "We've picked up multiple unidentified vessels entering our system. They're moving fast, and they're armed." Hart's stomach sank. Despite their efforts to remain inconspicuous, someone, or something, had found them. She activated the colony-wide alert system, ordering everyone to take shelter while preparing their meager defenses. New Haven wasn't equipped for large-scale warfare, but they weren't defenseless either. Over the years, they had salvaged and repurposed old technology, creating makeshift weapons and fortifications. As the massive shadow of the Krylos fleet loomed overhead, panic spread among the colonists. For many, this was their first encounter with alien life, and it was clear that these visitors did not come in peace. The attack begins. The Krylos wasted no time. Without issuing a declaration of intent or demanding surrender, their ships unleashed a barrage of plasma cannons, obliterating New Haven's outer defenses in seconds. Buildings crumbled, fires raged, and screams filled the air as the attack began in earnest. From the safety of the command bunker, Governor Hart watched in horror as her people suffered. Beside her, Lieutenant Chen clenched his fists, torn between anger and despair. "We're sitting ducks here," he muttered. "They'll tear us apart." Hart shook her head firmly. "Not yet. We still have options." She turned to her communications officer, a young woman named Eva Morales. "Eva, broadcast our distress signal on all frequencies. If anyone out there can hear us, maybe they'll help." Morales nodded and began transmitting the message, though hope felt futile. In the vast expanse of space, cries for help often went unanswered. Meanwhile, outside the bunker, groups of civilian volunteers rallied together under the leadership of Captain Elena Vega, a former mercenary who had settled on New Haven seeking refuge from her turbulent past. Vega quickly organized guerrilla squads, arming them with whatever tools and weapons they could scavenge. Her plan was simple but effective: hit hard, hit fast, and disappear before the enemy could retaliate. When the first wave of Krylos ground troops descended onto the surface, they expected minimal resistance. Instead, they found themselves ambushed by determined fighters using unconventional tactics. Explosive traps hidden beneath rubble detonated with devastating force, sending shockwaves through the invaders. Sniper teams perched atop ruined structures picked off officers and engineers, disrupting the Krylos chain of command. And when close combat became inevitable, the humans fought with ferocity born of desperation. For the first time in their long history, the Krylos tasted fear. A shocking revelation. Back aboard the Shadowfang, Commander Valeth observed the battle unfold with growing unease. Reports poured in from his commanders, detailing unexpected losses and mounting casualties. How could such a primitive species inflict so much damage? Sub-Commander Terix voiced what everyone else dared not say. "Commander, perhaps we underestimated them." Valeth growled, his tail lashing behind him. "Underestimated? Impossible. This is merely a temporary setback. Order reinforcements to the surface immediately. We will crush them." But deep down, doubt gnawed at him. These humans were unlike anything the Krylos had faced before, not because of their technology, which paled in comparison, but because of their spirit. There was a fire in their eyes, a refusal to yield even when faced with overwhelming odds. It was a quality the Krylos had forgotten existed. By the time reinforcements arrived, the tide of the battle had shifted. Though heavily outnumbered, the humans continued to hold their ground, buying precious time for evacuation efforts. Civilians boarded shuttles bound for nearby asteroids, carrying with them the hope of survival. Meanwhile, Captain Vega led a daring counterattack on the Krylos dropships, destroying several before retreating into the ruins. As the smoke cleared and the last shuttle departed, Valeth stared at the devastated landscape below. Victory belonged to the Krylos, but it was hollow. They had won the battle, but the humans had proven themselves far more resilient than anticipated. And so, as the Shadowfang prepared to leave the system, Valeth made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. "These humans," he declared, "are no longer insignificant. They are a threat, one that must be eradicated completely." Thus began a war that neither side could have foreseen, setting the stage for humanity's rise from scattered survivors to formidable opponents. News of the attack on New Haven spread like wildfire through the scattered human colonies. For decades, humanity had lived in relative isolation, focusing on rebuilding what little remained of their once thriving civilization. The fall of Earth, a planet ravaged by climate collapse, overpopulation, and internecine warfare, had left deep scars, both physical and emotional. Survival became the sole priority, with each colony operating independently, wary of drawing attention from more powerful interstellar entities. But the assault on New Haven changed everything. Survivors who managed to escape aboard hastily assembled shuttles carried harrowing tales of destruction and defiance. Captain Elena Vega's guerrilla tactics had not only inflicted significant losses on the Krylos, but also inspired hope among those who heard her name. Her leadership during the battle transformed her from a reclusive mercenary into a symbol of resistance, a beacon of courage in humanity's darkest hour. As these stories reached other colonies, they ignited something that had long lain dormant within the human spirit: unity. Colonies that had previously viewed one another as rivals or distant neighbors began reaching out, sharing resources and intelligence. Governors and leaders convened emergency summits via encrypted communications channels, discussing how best to respond to this unprecedented threat. At the forefront of this movement was Governor Leela Hart, whose resilience during the evacuation of New Haven earned widespread admiration. She proposed forming a coalition, the Terran Alliance, to coordinate humanity's defense against the Krylos. "We cannot stand alone," Hart declared in a broadcast transmitted across all human settlements. "If we continue to divide ourselves, we will perish. But if we unite, if we fight together, we may yet survive." Her words resonated deeply, striking a chord with colonists who had grown weary of living in fear. Within weeks, representatives from dozens of colonies gathered virtually to formalize the alliance. It was an imperfect union, fraught with disagreements and mistrust, but it marked the beginning of humanity's transformation from scattered survivors to a cohesive force. Key characters emerge. Amidst the chaos of preparation, key figures emerged to lead the charge against the Krylos. Captain Elena Vega. Though hailed as a hero, Vega struggled with the weight of her newfound responsibility. Haunted by memories of battles lost and comrades fallen, she initially resisted calls to take command of the Terran Alliance's military forces. However, when faced with the reality that humanity had no one else capable of matching the Krylos' strategic brilliance, she reluctantly accepted the role of Supreme Commander. Under her guidance, the ragtag militias of various colonies were molded into a disciplined fighting force. Vega emphasized unconventional tactics, leveraging humanity's adaptability and ingenuity to compensate for their technological inferiority. Dr. Marcus Hale, a brilliant scientist stationed at the research hub on Proxima Centauri IV, Dr. Hale dedicated himself to reverse engineering the Krylos technology recovered from New Haven. The wreckage of downed ships and captured weapons provided invaluable insights into the Predator's advanced systems. Working tirelessly alongside his team, Hale developed prototypes for new defensive measures and offensive capabilities. His crowning achievement, a device capable of disrupting the Krylos' energy shields, promised to level the playing field. Despite facing skepticism from some quarters, Hale's inventions soon proved indispensable. Eric Kane, a hot-headed yet exceptionally skilled fighter pilot, Eric Kane quickly rose to prominence within the Terran Alliance. Known for his reckless bravado and unmatched reflexes, Kane led daring raids on Krylos supply lines, earning both praise and criticism. His clashes with Vega over strategy highlighted the tension between traditional military discipline and rogue heroics. Over time, however, Kane's experiences forced him to mature, teaching him the value of teamwork and sacrifice. These individuals, though vastly different in temperament and background, shared a common goal: ensuring humanity's survival. Together, they formed the backbone of the resistance. First major battle, the Moon Siege. The Krylos did not wait long before launching a follow-up assault. Recognizing the growing threat posed by the Terran Alliance, Commander Valeth dispatched a massive fleet to crush the fledgling coalition before it could gain momentum. Their target was a desolate moon orbiting the gas giant, where the Terran Alliance had established a temporary base of operations. Aware of the impending attack, Vega devised a bold plan to turn the barren landscape into a deadly trap. Using salvaged mining equipment, engineers constructed hidden bunkers and underground tunnels beneath the moon's surface. Explosive charges were rigged throughout the terrain, designed to collapse sections of the battlefield upon enemy forces. Meanwhile, decoy structures mimicking vital installations drew the Krylos' attention away from the true defenses. When the Krylos fleet arrived, they unleashed a devastating bombardment, reducing much of the visible infrastructure to rubble. Confident in their superiority, ground troops descended onto the moon's surface, expecting to mop up any remaining resistance. Instead, they walked straight into Vega's ambush. As the first wave of Krylos warriors advanced, the explosives detonated, sending plumes of dust and debris billowing into the air. Chaos erupted as entire squads were buried alive or cut off from reinforcements. From concealed positions, human snipers picked off exposed targets while mobile strike teams flanked the disoriented invaders. Above them, fighter pilots like Eric Kane engaged in dogfights with Krylos interceptors, exploiting the enemy's rigid formations to gain the upper hand. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the humans fought with relentless determination. Every loss fueled their resolve. Every victory bolstered their morale. When the dust settled, the Krylos suffered heavy casualties, a staggering blow to their reputation as invincible conquerors. Whispers of rebellion. Word of the Terran Alliance's success spread far beyond human-controlled space. Other oppressed species, long cowed by the Krylos tyranny, took notice. Secret messages began filtering through covered networks, expressing admiration and solidarity. Some beacon offered assistance, smuggling supplies and intelligence to aid humanity's cause. For the first time in centuries, Cracks appeared in the Krylos Empire's facade of invincibility. Doubts crept into the minds of subjugated populations, whispering promises of freedom. Even among the Krylos themselves, murmurs of dissent began to surface. Not all agreed with Valeth's decision to escalate hostilities against such a tenacious foe. Commander Valeth, however, refused to acknowledge weakness. To him, the humans represented nothing more than a temporary obstacle, a challenge to be overcome with greater force. He ordered reinforcements to be mobilized, vowing to annihilate the Terran Alliance once and for all. Seeds of hope. Back at the Terran Alliance headquarters, celebrations were subdued. While the victory on the moon had been significant, everyone understood that it was merely a single step in a much longer journey. Humanity still lacked the resources and firepower needed to match the Krylos fleet directly. Each skirmish came at a cost, depleting already scarce supplies and claiming irreplaceable lives. Yet amidst the grim reality, there were glimmers of hope. Dr. Hale's shield disruptor entered mass production, giving human ships a fighting chance against Krylos vessels. Training programs turned raw recruits into competent soldiers, instilling in them the skills and discipline necessary to face the galaxy's most fearsome warriors. And perhaps most importantly, the sense of unity that had sparked the formation of the Terran Alliance continued to grow stronger with each passing day. Governor Hart addressed her people once again, this time with renewed conviction. "We are not just fighting for survival," she said. "We are fighting for our future, for the right to exist as equals in this galaxy. Let us show the Krylos, and anyone else who doubts us, that humanity will never surrender." With these words echoing in their hearts, humanity prepared for the next phase of the war. The road ahead would be fraught with peril, but they now had something they hadn't possessed before: belief in themselves. And belief, as history has shown, can move mountains or topple empires. With the Terran Alliance gaining momentum but still outmatched by the sheer scale of the Krylos Empire, Captain Elena Vega knew they needed a decisive blow to cripple their enemy. The shield disruptor developed by Dr. Marcus Hale had given humanity an edge in battles, but it wasn't enough to turn the tide entirely. To truly weaken the Krylos, they had to strike at the heart of their power structure, the central command hub located deep within the Krylos homeworld, Krylos Prime. Vega proposed an audacious plan, an infiltration mission to disable the command hub, which coordinated all military operations across the galaxy. Without it, the Krylos fleet would descend into chaos, giving humanity a critical advantage. However, reaching Krylos Prime was no small feat. Heavily fortified and surrounded by layers of defense systems, the planet was considered impregnable. Even suggesting such a mission drew skepticism from many within the Alliance. "You're asking us to walk into hell itself," Eric Kane muttered during one of the planning sessions. His usual bravado faltered as he studied the holographic map of the target area. "We'll be lucky if we make it past the first asteroid field." "We don't have a choice," Vega replied firmly. Her steely gaze silenced any further objections. "If we stay on the defensive, we'll eventually lose. We need to take the fight to them." After days of intense debate, the leadership agreed to proceed with the mission. A small team would infiltrate Krylos Prime while the main human fleet launched decoy attacks elsewhere to divert attention. Success depended on stealth, precision, and sheer determination. The team. Vega handpicked a group of specialists for the operation. Captain Elena Vega, leader of the mission, responsible for overall strategy. Eric Kane, skilled pilot tasked with navigating treacherous routes and providing air support. Dr. Marcus Hale, technical expert who would disable the command hub systems. Lieutenant Rhea Solis, former intelligence operative fluent in Krylos language and customs, serving as translator and infiltrator. Corporal Dax Torin, demolitions expert trained to handle high-risk sabotage missions. Each member brought unique skills to the table, but Vega understood that personal dynamics could make or break the mission. Tensions ran high between her and Kane, whose impulsiveness often clashed with her cautious approach. Meanwhile, Solis harbored secrets about her past dealings with the Krylos, secrets she feared might jeopardize the mission. Despite these challenges, the team knew failure was not an option. Through enemy territory, the journey to Krylos Prime tested their resolve from the start. Navigating through densely packed asteroid fields near the planet required pinpoint accuracy. Eric Kane piloted the cloaked shuttle with unmatched skill, dodging patrols and avoiding detection. Still, close calls left everyone on edge. Another patrol just passed overhead. Solis whispered, monitoring sensor readings. "They're sweeping the sector." Hold steady, Vega ordered, gripping the armrests of her seat. We can't afford to move until they're clear. Minutes felt like hours as the team waited in tense silence. When the coast was finally clear, Kane guided the shuttle toward a narrow gap in the asteroid belt, slipping through undetected. They emerged into open space, where the ominous silhouette of Krylos Prime loomed ahead. The planet was a fortress. Orbital stations bristled with weapons, and squadrons of fighters patrolled its skies. Landing unnoticed seemed impossible, but Vega had anticipated this. Using stolen codes obtained during earlier raids, Solus transmitted a forged signal identifying their vessel as a routine supply transport. The ruse worked, barely, and they landed in a remote industrial zone. Betrayal in the shadows. Once on the ground, the team split up to cover more ground. Vega and Hale headed for the command hub, while Kane and Torrin secured an escape route. Solus scouted ahead, ensuring the path remained clear. Everything went according to plan, until betrayal struck. As they approached the command hub, a contingent of Krylos soldiers ambushed them. Outnumbered and cornered, the team prepared for a desperate last stand. But before the fighting began, Solus stepped forward, raising her hands in surrender. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "They have my family. I didn't have a choice." Shock rippled through the group. Vega stared at Solus, betrayal burning in her eyes. "You led them right to us." Solus hesitated, tears streaming down her face. "I tried to warn you, but I couldn't risk losing them." Before anyone could react, Kryla's reinforcements swarmed the area. In the ensuing chaos, Hale managed to activate the shield disruptor prototype he carried, creating a brief window of opportunity. Vega seized the moment, ordering the others to retreat while she held off the enemy. "No," Kane shouted, unwilling to leave her behind. "We're not leaving you." "This isn't up for discussion," Vega snapped, her tone leaving no room for argument. She turned to face him, her expression softening for a fraction of a second. "Finish the mission, Eric. That's an order." Reluctantly, the team obeyed, retreating into the shadows as Vega stood alone against overwhelming odds. With unwavering resolve, she fought back, buying precious time for her comrades to complete their objective. Sacrifice and triumph. Inside the command hub, Hale worked frantically to disable the core systems. Explosions rocked the facility as Vega's diversion drew the bulk of the Krylos forces away. Torrin planted charges throughout the building, ensuring its destruction once they were gone. Meanwhile, Kane struggled with guilt over abandoning Vega. When the team regrouped outside, he insisted on mounting a rescue attempt, but Vega's voice crackled over their comms, halting him mid-step. "It's done," she said, her breathing labored. "Get out of here. Tell the others. Tell them we won." Her final transmission ended with the sound of gunfire and a deafening explosion. The command hub collapsed in a fiery inferno, severing the Krylos' ability to coordinate their forces. As the team fled the planet aboard their shuttle, they watched the flames engulf the horizon, marking the end of Vega's heroic sacrifice. The aftermath. Back aboard the Terran Alliance flagship, news of the successful mission spread quickly. Cheers erupted among the crew, but the victory was bittersweet. Vega's death weighed heavily on everyone, especially Kane, who vowed to honor her memory by continuing the fight. For the Krylos, the loss of their command hub plunged their empire into disarray. Communication breakdowns led to miscoordination among their fleets, allowing the Terran Alliance to seize the initiative. For the first time, the Predators found themselves on the defensive. Governor Leela Hart addressed the Alliance, her voice filled with both sorrow and determination. "Today, we lost a great leader, but her courage will inspire generations to come. Let us finish what she started. Let us bring peace to this galaxy." As humanity prepared for the final showdown, they carried with them the legacy of those who had given everything to ensure their survival. The road ahead remained perilous, but hope burned brighter than ever. The final showdown. With the Krylos Empire in disarray following the destruction of their central command hub, the Terran Alliance seized the opportunity to deliver a crushing blow. What remained of the Krylos fleet regrouped under Commander Valeth, who refused to accept defeat. Gathering every available ship, he launched a desperate counteroffensive aimed at humanity's core worlds, the heart of the Resistance. The stage was set for the climactic battle above Proxima Centauri IV, home to Dr. Marcus Hale's research hub and a key stronghold for the Terran Alliance. The planet's skies became a swirling maelstrom of fire and debris as hundreds of ships clashed in a brutal, no-holds-barred confrontation. From the bridge of the human flagship, Governor Leela Hart coordinated the defense alongside Eric Kane, now promoted to fleet commander after Vega's sacrifice. Their strategy relied on exploiting the chaos caused by the disabled command hub. Without centralized coordination, the Krylos forces struggled to adapt to the fluid battlefield. Hold the line. Kane barked into his comms, leading squadrons of fighters in daring strafing runs against larger Krylos cruisers. His piloting skills reached new heights as he weaved through enemy formations, taking calculated risks that inspired those around him. Meanwhile, ground forces engaged in fierce urban combat within the sprawling cities below. Civilians had been evacuated to underground bunkers, leaving soldiers free to fortify positions and ambush advancing Krylos troops. Every street corner, every building became a potential death trap for the invaders. As the battle raged on, it became clear that neither side would yield easily. Casualties mounted on both sides, and the cost of victory grew heavier with each passing hour. Yet, despite the mounting losses, humanity fought with unrelenting resolve, driven by the memory of Captain Elena Vega and all those who had sacrificed everything for this moment. A costly victory. In the end, it was a combination of ingenuity and sheer determination that turned the tide, using data transmitted from the remnants of rebuilding and reflection. In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy began to heal. The surviving Krylos sued for peace, offering reparations and pledging to dismantle their militaristic society. Many doubted the sincerity of their promises, but Governor Hart insisted on giving them a chance to change. "We'd spent centuries fighting because of hatred and fear," she said during a historic summit attended by representatives from dozens of species. "If we continue down that path, then we're no better than they were. Let this be a new beginning for all of us." Under her leadership, the Terran Alliance spearheaded the creation of the Galactic Coalition, an interstellar governing body dedicated to fostering cooperation and preventing future conflicts. Former enemies worked together to rebuild shattered worlds, sharing knowledge and resources to ensure mutual prosperity. Even some former Krylos officers joined the effort, seeking redemption for their past actions. Dr. Hale played a pivotal role in this reconstruction, using his expertise to develop technologies that benefited everyone. His shield disruptor design was repurposed into energy-efficient power grids, while advancements in medical science saved countless lives. Humanity's contributions earned them respect and admiration throughout the galaxy, solidifying their place among the stars. Personal growth and closure. For Eric Kane, the war's conclusion brought mixed emotions. Though proud of what humanity had achieved, he couldn't shake the guilt of losing so many comrades, especially Vega. Returning to Earth, now partially restored thanks to Coalition efforts, he found solace in visiting the monument erected in honor of fallen heroes. Etched into its surface were the names of those who had given their lives, including Vega's. "She believed in us," Kane murmured, tracing her name with his fingers, "even when we didn't believe in ourselves." Nearby, children played amidst the ruins of old cities, laughing and dreaming of brighter futures. Watching them, Kane realized that Vega's legacy lived on, not just in monuments or stories, but in the hope she had ignited within humanity. She had taught them to stand tall, to fight not out of hatred, but for something greater than themselves. A new dawn. Years later, humanity thrived once more, their colonies flourishing across the galaxy. The scars of war remained, but they served as reminders of how far they had come, and how much farther they could go if united. On rebuilt Earth, the monument to fallen heroes stood tall beneath a sky filled with stars, a testament to the courage and resilience that defined humanity. Above it all, the galaxy watched and learned. No longer did the Krylos dominate through fear. Instead, they coexisted alongside other species, striving to build a better future. And though challenges lay ahead, humanity knew they were ready to face them, together. As Eric Kane gazed at the stars one final time, he smiled faintly. "We did it, Elena," he whispered. "We showed them what it means to truly fight." And somewhere deep in the cosmos, perhaps Captain Elena Vega heard him and smiled too.